Well, our moms think we're funny.
So, well, we're recording, so I don't know what our podcast topic should be.
So actually, I had something.
Yeah.
I was keeping a note of like podcast topics and stuff like that.
See, I used to, and I just haven't added to it in ages.
I'm trying to. For some reason, I put in, and it duplicated the note, which I don't know why I did that. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but all right. But now I'm afraid of like deleting one of the duplications because it created like two additional. So I have 3 of the same note, and I'm like, I don't want to delete it because it's like an ongoing like thread.
Right.
Or, so if I did that, it might decide, oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and delete them all because you don't want this, right? Anyway, so we were talking about, or we kind of talked. There's a couple of different things we're going to talk about, and I think we've got a lot of superhero topics that we need to discuss, that we've been trying to discuss.
Yeah.
And so I was going to say we've got one that we're working on right now to talk about in the future, which is a superhero versus matches with the Aliens, the Aliens movie. Aliens, and then the Predator movie, Aliens. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm all over the place this morning. But because as we talked about, and we'll mention again when we actually do the podcast, is that Batman is teamed up, or not teamed up, but he's fought the Predator, and I think 3 different times, 3 different like miniseries. He's fought Alien. Superman's fought the Predator, and he's fought the Alien as well. So I was like, who else would be kind of a good match that we would like to see.
Yeah.
So, we're kind of thinking that through, and we'll do a podcast on that. But kind of when I was thinking about that, it reminded me of an idea I had for a Batman, Superman, and Star Wars crossover.
Okay.
So the X-Men have actually crossed over with Star Trek.
Okay.
And that was actually a pretty good one, as I remember it. And it was drawn by Mark Silvestri. Green Lantern crossed over with Star Trek like a couple years back, DC. So I was like, so I had this idea of this Batman Superman crossover. And I really liked it a lot. And I mean, maybe it's one day something I'll write up as a fan fiction. But you know how I feel about fan fiction. It's unless it's something really a story I really want to tell, I don't really see the need in wasting a good idea and wasting my time on something that doesn't really serve a purpose.
Right. As
far as like it's nothing I can publish or I can post it, but it could be.
For me, it's like why would I even bother writing it if I can't make my 2 favorite characters fuck? But hey, that's just me.
Right. Well, I mean, you can do like a Batman and Princess Leia or Superman and Han Solo.
Superman and Chewbacca. What do you take me for? I'm not some plebe.
I know you feel about furries. But why? And then even if I did post it, if someone got a big enough hair up their ass, they could just be like, you can't post that or whatever, even though I'm not making any money.
That's what's going to happen to Superman when Chewbacca posts it.
Oh, man. The Superman was like, oh. That'd be horrible.
Then Batman says, Clark, why do you have such a hair up your ass? He says, no reason. No reason at all.
And when it's all done, I want you to say, what a lovely glass of blue milk. All right, so the idea I had for this, I say maybe one day I will, if I don't have anything better to do, or if I get something like a really good, like a better, like an additional like scene or something like that for it. Like, oh, right, this, now I feel like doing this. But the story starts off with Batman, Superman it's Batman on the Watchtower, and something hits the moon, and there's like something like kind of appears out of from nowhere. It's not like an incoming like a object that's kind of flowing through space. It just kind of appears out of nowhere and just slams into the moon.
It's Dr. Eggman blowing up half of the moon.
Oh. Did Dr. Eggman do that?
Yeah, Sonic Adventure 2.
Oh, dude, I don't follow Sonic.
Yeah, man, he went aboard the space station Ark and used the Chaos Emeralds to blow up half the moon.
Oh, okay. No, I did not know that. No, the Klingons blew up half their moon.
Well,
but and that's what made them have to join the Federation. So it's something to the moon. They go out there and investigate, and they find an old battered, just a battered mother box. So Batman is examining the mother box, and he gets and he ends up they're able to get some information from it.
Right.
And so from the information they get from it, they realize that there's a message in there that says that Krypton was destroyed. It didn't like explode because the core went critical, or the planet or whatever. It was actually destroyed by like another race. And something happens. So Superman finds out. Batman tells Superman, and they decide they're going to investigate, and they end up hooking the mother box up to a spaceship. And because the mother box can teleport, and that's actually how it got there. Wherever it was, it teleported and slammed into the moon. So they use it to teleport to where this thing was. It actually kind of takes them back in time.
Right.
To where this thing happened. And basically, as it comes down to it, they find out that through the information that they're gathering is that this alien race was building this giant planet destroying like weapon, which is the Death Star. And Krypton being this planet of like scientists and that kind of stuff, there was this basically this kind of intergalactic civil war that was going on, and some of the rebels were hiding out on Krypton.
Right.
And so, in order to destroy the rebels, this giant planet destroying ship, or just I'm talking about from their perspective, but the Death Star blows up Krypton. So that's actually what destroyed Krypton, was the Death Star.
I like it.
To kill the rebels. So they go there to kind of figure out what's going on, and they're going to different places. So Batman says, there's this planet, this desert planet called Tatooine, and I'm going to go there and investigate. And he's like, send Superman to Coruscant. Superman's like, no, I want to go there. It's like, no, you go here to this place and you go investigate there. I'm going to check this place out. Right. And he's very adamant about that. So they go to their different places.
The two sons, right?
Well, I'm getting to that, but thank you for ruining that. So Batman goes down there, and he ends up encountering like some bounty hunters. Okay. And ends up fighting them. But to get a little bit of information for it, I'm going to tie this all up real quick. Superman goes, and he ends up encountering Darth Vader, and it's not a really good fight for him.
Because the Force would penetrate his resistance to magic, right?
Right. Okay. Plus he's been away from the yellow sun of Earth too.
Oh yeah.
So he's losing some power, and so Batman ends up going and rescuing Superman from Coruscant because he's been injured, and they're healing, and everything just really comes to a head. At one point, Superman is fighting
Correction. Batman, not Superman. 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 Correction. Batman, not Superman.
Fighting like a bounty hunter, and he reaches for like a lightsaber because they're fighting on the ship, and things are exploding and stuff, and he's reaching for this lightsaber, and he's reaching to grab it, and then the lightsaber like shoots across the floor and into his hand. And there's this whole thing because Batman knows a little bit about what's going on here that he hasn't really told Superman, because when he was doing his whole like journeying around the world, like learning what he could about all different things.
Right.
That he went in like these like mountains and like the Himalayas or whatever. There was this being that some people had kind of worshipped, almost like a monk or like the Dalai Lama kind of thing. And it was rumored that this person came from beyond the stars.
Right. Right.
And so what it is that there was a Jedi that had kind of either lost his way or something, ended up traveling to Earth and landed there and basically taught people the way of the Jedi and the Force.
Yeah.
And so Batman learned from either one of those people, and it could have technically been this guy, but, you know, he says it's supposed to be centuries ago that this happened.
Right, right.
Or that he knows, like, the fighting techniques. He knows about that and the whole spiritualism and mysticism of that.
Right.
So when Batman is... so he's familiar with that, and that's also one of the reasons why he wanted to go to Tatooine as opposed to, go to Coruscant. And as he's reaching for this, there's this like, he knows the way of the Force, and so he kind of summons the lightsaber to his hand. But the ship is also like explosions and it's rocking back and forth.
Right.
So when that happens, the ship kind of tilts and jumps, and it could just be that it just slid into his hand. So it's kind of leaving it ambiguous there. But you get Batman with a lightsaber fighting, kind of like we saw in the Bat and Sun video with him versus Vader.
Yeah, superpowered beatdown.
Right. So so when he gets Superman, they get him on the ship. And at one point, because Superman is hurt, he takes him. They fly back over to Tatooine, and he puts him in this kind of an observation deck area. And they open the shields up and basically just bathe Superman in the twin suns of Tatooine, which is why he didn't want him to go there, because he'd be so powerful. And it would be too much power, really, that he's not used to controlling.
Right.
But because he's hurt and because of everything that's going on, Batman's like, he exposed him to that, and it heals Superman and just makes him just mad on powerful.
Yeah.
So that he takes on Vader. But you find out in the end, though, that Krypton blew up on its own. It had nothing to do with them. There were rumors of rebels hiding out on Krypton, and they died when Krypton exploded. Yeah. But the Death Star never attacked them. It never had anything to do with it. So Krypton still just blew up on its own. And they kind of find out what happened. That's really what they came there for, was to find out who was really responsible, if there was someone else responsible, and there wasn't. And then they leave, but they get this whole Star Wars adventure with bounty hunters and stormtroopers and Darth Vader.
Nice.
And then Superman with with the power of the twin suns of Tatooine.
Yeah, I like it.
So I thought that'd be a really cool story.
Yeah, that would be fun.
No one's paying me to write this, and I didn't really have anything else to go up on except for this kind of like premise of that. And I was like, that'd be kind of awesome. Yeah. It's not non-canon story and just toss it out there.
Yeah.
So that leads me into superheroes, and so in this case we're talking about Star Wars, in comic books and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's leading me to this discussion that you and I kind of talked about having about Martin Scorsese and his comment that he made about superhero movies.
Okay, that's the one we're talking about.
Yeah, and then recently Jodie Foster also made a comment about that.
Yeah.
And
should we give an introduction?
Should we?
We're like 11 minutes in. You know who we are, people.
Yeah, you know us.
You know what this friggin' podcast is called. Grow up. Okay, there's the introduction.
Yeah, that's the introduction?
Yeah.
Should we be formal and pretend like we're professionals?
No. We're halfway through.
I don't think 11 minutes is halfway through.
Yeah. 11 is half of 60. Fuck you.
I told you, man, you cannot use the Terrence Howard math book to learn math.
Use a 11, get you home by 7. That was the last episode of The Office.
What?
Kevin is one of the guys in accounting, and he's just dumb as a post. And so, like, in the very last episode, they wind up firing him. So they bring in a new accountant in the last episode, and she, like, comes in, she's like, guys, I keep seeing this weird symbol on all of your accounting paperwork. And they're like, yeah, that's a K11. And then she's like, what? And he's like, that's a number that Kevin made up anytime there was a discrepancy in his paperwork. Anytime there was a mess up in the math, he would just put down a K11 and put the correct sum down. And he always said, use a K11, get you home by 7. So...
Wow, so their accounting is all messed up.
Oh, yeah. It's great because, like, you spend, like, all 9 seasons wondering why they never fire Kevin. And so they fire him in the last episode, and everyone's like, you can't do that! And he's like, give me one good reason why not. And everybody raises their hands, and he's like, no, I mean, give me one good reason based off of his merits as an employee. And everybody lowers their hands. He's like, okay, this is why we're firing Kevin.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to start off with this by saying, on our topic here is that as a lover of movies, and I am quite the fan of Jodie Foster and of Martin Scorsese. And I'm going to get into like all the merits of Martin Scorsese in a minute.
Yeah, I thought he was great on Cheers.
I think we're thinking about a different guy.
Charlton Heston?
What?
What?
Do we need to start this over again?
No, I'm just...
You're like leavening this whole podcast.
I'm just saying random shit. You're usually quicker on your feet than this to just realize that I'm being a jackass.
I'm sorry, I thought we were doing a serious podcast this time. I didn't know we were doing a jackass podcast. So, no, but seriously.
Everything I do is a jackass podcast.
Oh, God. See, this is exactly why I'm studying Wicca, right? Because I'm going to find Charles Schultz's grave. I'm going to use my Wiccan powers to bring him back to life, and I'm going to have a true partner and everything.
You'll just keep pulling the football out from under you.
It's fine. At least it'll be funny. Okay, I'm sorry. I can't watch Dan Gardace anymore. I thought this was going to be so much better than it is, but this is absolutely horrible. We've been watching this for like 20 minutes, and boy, that cigar looks like he's got a roach hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And like there's nothing happening. I realize this is the first episode, but there's nothing happening.
It's pretty slow paced.
Yeah.
I do like the art style though.
Yeah, it's old school, like, anime. All right, yeah, I'll give it like 2 episodes. Two episodes, and then I'm done. And the perspectives on these shots are like everything's like it's a wonky.
It is low budget, but yeah. So Martin Scorsese.
Okay, so I have a lot of respect for Martin Scorsese as a filmmaker, as a film lover. I have a lot of respect for him. Mm-hmm. So I just want to make that clear, like off the bat, and
Before we just go off on him.
Well, that's the thing, I'm not going to go off on him.
I will.
So let's go ahead and just get into this part. Scorsese is one of these guys who is a filmmaker through and through. Mm-hmm. If you go back and watch that Steven Spielberg documentary, and they talks about him and Spielberg and Lucas and De Palma and all of them, kind of all just being pals and buddies and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you go back to like Scorsese's stuff, he's made some movies that are not that great. But one of the things he always, I'm not gonna say goes back to, but he makes his kind of like Italian gangster movies and stuff, and he's done those for a long time. Mean Streets and I hate when I'm drawing up, like I guess you consider Gangs in New York like an early one of that.
Was that a Scorsese film?
Yeah.
Was that a Scorsese film?
Yeah.
Okay.
Goodfellas, he does this, and of course he's got The Irishman, but because it's a world he knows.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stick just with that. One of my favorite Scorsese movies is The Aviator with DiCaprio. The Aviator is fantastic. Wolf of Wall Street is fantastic.
I still haven't watched Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh man, Wolf of Wall Street is really good. He did that movie with was it Brad Pitt, the Dalai Lama movie? Was it 7 Years in Tibet? I mean, so he makes movies. He doesn't always just stick with like one thing is like, oh, this is what I do, and I'm just going to continue to do that. But he knows that world, and if there's a chance to make a good movie about that world or explore something different, he will.
Yeah, yeah.
He also watches a shit ton of movies. If you've ever seen any kind of like documentary with him or any kind of interview, he watches movies like foreign films and everything.
Nice.
He devours movies and filmmakers and genres. So it kind of hurt me a little bit for someone who I see as being such a movie connoisseur, and not just American films, but all over, and just going back to, silent films or whatever, and just to have that much movie knowledge to make a comment like that about superhero movies. And I'm like,
well, I guess we should elaborate on what he said, because we haven't actually said what his statement was.
So, Yeah, you're right. Because I was kind of going off the fact that we're people are going to be aware of kind of this whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up his actual statement about superhero movies.
Sure.
And I guess I should have done that early on, but again, I wasn't thinking about it. But while I'm doing that, what do you have to say?
I feel like we kind of need to contextualize it, but from what I recall about your statement, as far as what he said, I'll just make it clear going into it. I don't agree with what he says. And I can elaborate on the reasons for that and like debate the merits of it once we actually get into it. But
okay.
Now, and granted, I'm not coming into this quite as invested in Scorsese as you are. I haven't seen as many of his films. I understand, based off of his reputation, that he is a very competent director. But I don't think this hit home quite as close to me as it did to you. Because essentially what my reaction was to just go, no, that's bullshit. And that was pretty much the end of it for me, you know?
Wait, so as someone that loves cinema the way I do, and I'm nowhere along his caliber. I don't watch a lot of foreign films. Something really has to catch my attention. And there's a lot of films where I've been like, I have no interest in this, and I'll end up like watching it and loving it. And sometimes there's something that I might be just flipping through a channel someday and just come across something, and it'll be enough to like I said, to draw me in.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, wow, that's pretty interesting. Or sometimes I've just been like, no, this really kind of sucks.
Right.
And we do our less watches of bad movies.
Yes.
That we recognize are bad movies. And I also know I have some bad movies that I love to death. I know they're bad movies, and I'm like, this is my guilty pleasure. Mm-hmm. I love this movie. It's horrible. And I would only recommend it, in a certain like vein. But I do love this movie, and I recognize that it is not a good movie.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Wicker Man.
The new one?
Yeah, the one with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
I mean, I fucking love Wicker Man. I love Wicker Man. And anytime if it's going to be like my decision to pick a movie amongst people, then of course I'm going to go for Wicker Man or something like that. I mean, but yeah, I recognize that, it's schlock. It's a bad film. It's objectively got a lot of problems in the writing and the scripting, but I love the movie.
So this is from a Vox article from November of 2019. And I'm going to try not to read the whole thing.
That's us staying topical.
Yeah. Well, we kept kind of putting this one off.
We did, yeah. Kind of had to find our center.
So it says here that the director said, quote, I don't think that there's cinema, talking about Marvel movies. Director wrote an op-ed for New York Times on November 4th, voicing his disdain for Disney superhero blockbusters. I was asked a question about Marvel movies. I answered it. I said that I've tried to watch a few of them and that they're not for me. That they seem to me to be closer to theme parks than they are movies, as I've known and loved them throughout my life. The New York Times piece was Scorsese expanding upon an interview with Empire in October, where he first commented on Marvel. The director of The Irishman, as well as critically heralded classics like Taxi Driver and Goodfellas, ignited discussion about Marvel movies that have seen other famed directors criticize them. Francis Ford Coppola, for instance, called the franchise despicable. I like Coppola, but I like Coppola a lot, but I don't see him as being like he's a great filmmaker, but I don't see him as being, such a film connoisseur in the same way of Martin Scorsese. So if he's like, I don't really like these movies, I'm like, okay, but because I just see you as being a filmmaker and you make these movies, and you may like movies, but you would like movies in the same way that Acomi and I like movies.
Right.
I treat Martin Scorsese differently because of how he's like, movies are my life.
Right.
I don't just like them, I just absorb them.
Right.
So Coppola's comments and everything don't faze me one way or the other.
So he's like the food critic from Ratatouille. I don't like food. I love food.
And so for Coppola, I'm just like, that's just like your opinion, man. And it's not going to change how I feel about him or his movies in any way at all.
Right.
So, given that there are countless fans of Marvel movies, blah, 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 cut. Defense of the Marvel franchise immediately follows Scorsese's thing. His statement, makers like Taika Waititi, James Gunn, tried to explain that the way Coppola and Scorsese see Marvel movies is how their movies were treated by the generations of directors before them. And I don't really see that in the same way. That's not my take on it. Scorsese's comments reached Marvel chief Kevin Feige, who responded and said, "I think it's unfortunate. I think myself and everyone who works on these movies loves cinema, loves movies, loves going to the movies, loves to watch a communal experience in a movie theater full of people. I can tell you right now, I haven't really been to the movie theater in so long. It's because the last couple of times I went there, it was not a communal experience. It was me with a bunch of people that are trying to escape the heat or just looking for some way to kill time, and they won't shut the fuck up. They won't watch a movie. They won't be silent. They won't turn off their phones. And I swear to God, I want to kill a motherfucker.
Yeah,
and I hate saying that after the whole Batman thing, right? But I swear, and this is not to sound blasphemous, but a movie theater is like my church. It's like my second church.
Right.
I guess it's kind of like my first church because I really don't go to church anymore. Not that I don't believe in God. It's a totally different subject, but I just don't go to church anymore.
Yeah.
But movie theater is like my church. You come in there, you watch the movie, you shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You can talk if you want to.
Show some respect.
Right. But when the previews start, you zip the fuck up. If you need to say something, you can whisper. If you don't know how to whisper, then you just need to learn how to speak telepathically.
Yeah.
But you shut the fuck up. And you stay silent until the movie's over.
Yeah, it's very rare that I see movies in theaters, but I mean, a very large portion of the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 times I've been, there has not been that communal experience. It's been people with just their heads up their asses. Because, I mean, I talked, a couple years back when I saw it in theaters, and there were people who were, like, running their mouths the whole time, and finally about 3/4 of the way through the movie, that guy just, like, stood up behind us and was like, "Would you shut the fuck up? You've been talking the entire movie!" And, like, I mean, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's more the norm for my experience. And, like, when we went to see Fight Club at
the local theater.
At the local theater, yeah. And, like, that, I mean, I've said multiple times, watching Fight Club is a very spiritual experience for me. It's a very integral part of how I start my year, basically. And, I mean, we had to walk out, within the first 2 minutes because this entire row of college kids just wouldn't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and it's just banal shit. And I'm like, well, you here to watch the movie? I'm so sorry that your lives are so boring. You don't have anything else to fucking do on a Friday night or whatever.
Yeah, and, like, they weren't even saying anything that was, like, significant. It was just like, is this an old movie?
Yeah, and I'm
what
like,
the fuck do you think? Just watch the goddamn thing.
Why did you come here?
Seriously.
I was like, oh,
that was probably the maddest I've ever seen you, which is saying something, because I've seen you livid at times, but...
Yeah, I'm not proud of those moments. I'm
but,
not.
Well, no, I mean, I wasn't trying to, like, call you out or anything.
No, I'm not. But yeah, when I was
just remember you tripping over that one kid's feet and was just like, "Get the fuck out of my way!" It was really funny. It was good stuff.
And that's the thing, too, and not to make a racial thing out of it, but, racial tensions are high right now. I guess they've always kind of been high. We've just, kind of not really called on it. But racial tensions are really high right now. And as a black guy in a theater, if I'm telling somebody, "Will you shut the fuck up?" that can create a lot of problems for me.
Right, yeah.
Even though I'm not the one technically at fault. I'm the one that's here to watch a movie and to really be a part of this experience.
Yeah,
You're the one that won't shut the fuck up, or you won't stop shaking your goddamn popcorn, or whatever it is. That is just a disruption. But if I say anything, I'm the bad guy because it's like, not trying to get in, but it's just like, oh, there they go again.
Yeah,
it's like,
I will say, seeing Endgame in theaters, that was a really good crowd. I had the privilege of being with a really good group of people who did, like, stay quiet, and, like, it was a pretty big deal for everybody. Which is, it's kind of fitting that it was Endgame that was one of the best theater experiences I've had in recent years, because that kind of ties into what we're talking about here.
I've had, I can count on one hand the number of, like, great theater experiences I've had. And it's gotten to a point now, whenever I want to go see a movie, it's almost like I have to see it, like in the middle of the week, like on a Tuesday or a Thursday at, like, the first showing, like a 10:30 or 11 o'clock showing. And I can sit far enough away. And I hate this whole movie theater magnetism thing where I can be there. And it doesn't matter what time I show up. If I'm the first person there, everyone wants to sit around me.
Right.
You got a whole fucking theater to sit in. If I sit all the way up top, someone wants to sit near me. If I sit like near the middle, they want to sit. I'm like, no,
it's your charisma.
No, yeah, I'm like,
It's your animal.
do I look like I'm fucking charismatic?
Charismatic. Personally, one of my best theater experiences in the past 3 years was going to see Deadpool, because I did go in the middle of the week, and it was almost completely empty. There was a couple, like a few rows ahead of me, and there was like one other person at the very back, and I was just like right in the middle. Nobody bothered me, nobody spoke to me, no eye contact. It was such a solitary experience that I might as well have been there alone, and I fucking loved that. But I'm also very much a hermit. I'm like extremely much an introvert. So, I mean, that was like heaven to me.
But there's something great about going to a movie when everyone is there to see the movie, and you get kind of caught up in that feeling of, when something happens and everything, and you hear people catch their breath, or or you hear somebody like, that.
Yeah, which is what happened when Kat picked up the hammer. When I saw Endgame, just you could hear everybody just go, oh, and that was such a good moment of like, yeah, everybody's just as fucking blown away with this as I am.
So one of my great movie experiences was Stax and I went to go see, I think we both had the day off or whatever, and we went to go see Ninja Assassin in the theater, and it was like the two of us and like one other person at like 11 o'clock in the morning. And that was fantastic.
That is cool.
When I did the Marvel, this was before they were calling it phases, but the Marvel Phase 1 movie marathon, which was like an all-day thing. Everybody there was there to see Marvel movies. Right. They followed the rules. The lights dimmed, they shut up.
Yeah.
And these people did not start talking again until the lights came back up. So during the credits, no one was talking. You heard somebody like start something and people like, shh, and they would quiet down. Because you're talking like 12 hours of movies.
Yeah.
And because this thing started at like 11, and then Avengers was playing at midnight, because Avengers was opening, I think it started on, Avengers was opening on, Friday. Yeah. And so we saw it on a Thursday, and it started playing Avengers at midnight. So it was a long ass day. And everybody was there to see that movie. And that was a great experience, because, it was like, we're spending all this time here. We're spending like 12 hours or whatever to watch these movies. Yeah, we're going to shut up and we're going to watch these movies. Actually, this was like 14 hours. It was crazy. I loved that.
Yeah.
When I went to go see the Lord of the Rings marathon, the extended editions of all three movies, it was me, Stax, one of my exes, or my girlfriend at the time, and I think there were like maybe 4 other people that were there. Mm-hmm. And again, these are people that are dedicated, and they're going to see this, because that was another like 10-hour session there with like I think a 15 or half hour like break in between.
Right.
And they were all dedicated. You know what you're coming in here for. No one's there to like you jerk off for 10 hours. So there was that. And I've had a couple really good Marvel experiences, because like opening day, because everyone there, because you're standing in line for 3 hours waiting for the movie to start, because you want to get good seats. But I mean, that was it. And then.
And I think it's very telling that some of our best theater experiences are Marvel things, because that kind of ties in with what we're discussing here with Scorsese saying it's not cinema. It's like, well, these are some of our best cinematic experiences. We're actually dealing with a crowd who fucking respects the movie, and you just don't get that.
Right. And so if you want to go all the way back, it was that episode, or I think 2-parter on Behind the Bastards, where they were talking about like movies and Edison and all that, and how when movies were first coming about, and when kind of the whole making of movies moved over to the West Coast because of the hold they had on the East Coast, and like who can make movies and who can't.
Right.
There were communities of immigrants that were making movies for immigrants. They were making movies for their people.
Right. And
the theaters were flooded with these people that were watching movies that represented, not just them as a people, but their culture and, their interests. Mm-hmm. And it was bringing them together. That's that communal thing that Feige's talking about.
Yeah.
That we're talking about.
Right.
So even if you don't see them as being, like cinema or whatever, in a way, they're kind of a little bit more cinema than anything else, because they are drawing this group of people together in a way that some other franchises and things don't do, or genres don't do.
Yeah.
Horror movies bring in horror movie people, but it's not a communal thing. Yeah. You're going there, and you may be going to be going there because you do want to be a part of that whole, like, that the people around you that are being scared, like we talked about in our other podcast.
Right, yeah.
But you're not really going there to share that experience with them. You're going more to take that experience, from them.
Yeah, and it gleans, and we did talk about this on some of our horror podcasts too, it gleans a different thing for different people, and different people are getting different things out of it. And, just like with watching it, there were moments where I was scared shitless, but Overton and Camelot were like, laughing. And, it's like, it hits different people in different ways. And, there's not that communal thing. But, just, man, and I'll always go back to that moment of Kat picking up the hammer, because it was just such a thing, and just the entire room, you could just feel everybody change.
Yeah.
And, I remember I was saying under my breath, like, oh my God. And then, I could hear a guy like a few seats down from me just go, holy shit. And it was like everybody knew that was the big moment.
Yeah.
It's like we have been waiting for this for so long.
And people clapping and stuff.
Oh, man, yeah.
Dude, when I saw the Avengers marathon, and at the end of it, of the Avengers, when the guy says, to challenge Earth is to court death, and that chair turned around, and I was like, oh shit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and you could feel like an atmospheric change in the theater. Not everybody, I think, got it.
Right.
But, I mean, the people there, you could kind of feel this shit. It was almost like as if it got colder or something, you know?
Yeah.
And it was nice. And you can still get that at home, but it's just not the same. And I hate the fact that I find myself watching more movies at home because I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to pay $12, to be pissed off because some asshole won't shut the fuck up.
Right.
And then all they do, they just send somebody in with a flashlight, and and of course the person's gonna be quiet during that time, and I'm ready to grab somebody and throw them down the goddamn aisle. I mean, just shut up.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
What are you here for?
Right. I wouldn't mind him sitting and ushering with a flashlight if he was just gonna club him to death like a baby seal, but that never happened.
Yes. Just like that episode of American Dad. And oh man. So anyway.
just beat him to death like a poacher killing a baby panda in a bamboo grove, and Willa just laugh and throw our candy wrappers at him. So that's a communal experience I can get behind.
Heck yeah. So anyway, going back to Scorsese.
Yeah.
These people came out, like Tim Gunn said something, and Taika Waititi said something, and it says that the real issue, says here, according to this article, fueling Coppola and Scorsese seemingly out of the blue backlash against Marvel is something that all involved parties might agree on. Audiences aren't going to theaters to see movies like they used to, and movie studios are compensating by pivoting away from original stories towards surefire bets, and those tend to be very expensive superhero movies, sequels, and adaptations or remakes. So I'm going to toss that on the movie industry, because you're the guys that set this up. You're the same people that say, I don't want to have a 3-hour-long movie because that means I can only get 3 showings in a day. I'd rather have a movie that's only an hour and 20 minutes. That way I can get 8 showings in a day, and then I can make more money. Your greed is, instead of putting out a quality product, you're too busy trying to just shove out products and everything like freaking Menachem Golem.
Right.
And that's going to do it. And then when these things tank, or when you see one thing does really well for whatever reason, then all you guys do is just copy it, and you just sit there and you just take it and you just Xerox the shit out of that. Like the Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
That movie comes out and it says, and then they're like, oh, this movie made $30 million. Okay, $30 million horror film, that's not a big deal. It cost $50,000 to make. We're doing this.
Yeah.
And then that's what you
Get
just
me in on this shit.
You fucking ride that horse until it dies.
But I mean, that's been a problem with the filmmaking industry for so long, and I keep going back to Jackie Chan's autobiography just because I've read it recently. But I mean, he talks about that when he got into the movie industry, everybody was looking for the next Bruce Lee. Everybody wanted to follow the formula of the Bruce Lee movies. It's you have to be, your character has to be this impeccable martial artist. He has to be on a revenge mission to avenge his fallen sensei. It always has to be the same, follow the same beats. And he would have it out with his directors of saying this is not working. All of these movies are failing because none of us are Bruce Lee.
Right.
You're not going to get another Bruce Lee. And they were like, no, this is the formula we have to follow. It was successful for him. And it was, there was that turning point where Jackie Chan was like, no, I want to play a bumbling oaf. I'm a comedian. I'm here to entertain. Let me do a funny character who just goofs up every once in a while.
Right.
And that's when things started turning around for him. It's let
me show these things actually hurt when you punch somebody or miss, and this hurts.
Yeah. It's I want to fail. I want to be a character who's flawed. And one of the biggest turnaround points for Jackie Chan's career was when he did Drunken Master.
Yeah.
And that's a historical figure in China. Was this traveling doctor who would go around and he would use the Drunken Master technique to defend himself, but he would go around helping sick people. And there'd been, like, tons of movies about this guy, but they were all very reverent and very carefully handled to show, yes, this guy was, like, a really respected figure. And Jackie Chan's approach to it was like, no, I want to show him as this douchebag teenager who just doesn't take anything seriously. I want him to be a flawed character, and everybody was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You shouldn't do that with this guy. This is a guy we don't do that way, you know? And he did it. And it wound up taking off, and people loved it. And that's, that was when people started kind of changing their view on things.
But yeah, you're talking about the Bruce Lee clones, and you see that when you go back and you look at martial arts movies, from after Bruce Lee's death. You've got Bruce Lee with a L-I, Bruce
That's my favorite.
Yeah, Bruce Lee with L-E-I, whatever. Then you've got people like Bronson Lee. They're just changing people's names. They're all trying to capitalize on it. And then you have so many movies from that time, like The True Story of Bruce Lee with a guy that looks vaguely like him. If you squint and threw some shit in your other eye, right?
It's a Chinese guy with a bowl cut, so,
Right. And then there's always like, Bruce Lee returns from the grave, or Bruce Lee faked his death to find out. And there's like all these movies about Bruce Lee or somehow involving
the
him.
Chinese gods.
Right. We're trying to figure out whatever. And there's a shit ton of them.
Oh, yeah.
Or people that are just like, say, it's like, oh, it's Bruce Lee. And, some people just aren't discerning enough to be like, that's not how you spelled his name. Or, back then it's like, oh, I need something with Bruce Lee in it. You didn't have like videotape or whatever. It was like, oh, here's a movie or whatever. It's just, they're just capitalizing on it. And Hollywood does that so much, and they don't find out what it is that makes something good and why this took off. Like, oh, at the time, this was something new, something refreshing that people hadn't seen, or, there was a need for this. This wasn't being fulfilled, and audiences were craving it. And sometimes audiences don't know what they need until you give it to them, and they're like, oh yes, I was missing this. I couldn't put my finger on it, but this is it. Yeah. And now I'm just being inundated with it, and like, I don't need it. It's like, it's like when the doctor says, oh, hey, you know what? You need a little bit more vitamin D. And so you start taking vitamin D, and then you start taking way too much. Like, whoa. You just need a little bit.
Right.
You got that now. Now tone it down.
Yeah. Because, you know what happens when you overdose on vitamin D? You just become Icarus.
What?
Yeah. He flew too close to the sun, so he overdosed on vitamin D.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
Okay, but it's interesting you were bringing up this need thing, because I just saved a quote from Alan Moore yesterday, which you know me.
Well, hold on. So before you get into that, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. I was going to try to do it after I finished Scorsese's whole thing, but I don't think I'm going to. I think we're going to end up tackling this thing piecemeal. So we'll take a break now. And
we're
you
actually
start
42 minutes in. This may be a two-parter.
Well, yeah. Please don't forget we jerked off for like the first 10 minutes too.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it probably would be a two-part. That's cool. All right. So break time.
Excelsior, true believers. There's a new podcast called In the Gutter, starring yours truly, Wallcrawler 1.
And Turk182 from the podcast Our Moms Think We're Funny.
In the Gutters will explore all of comicdom, from the depths of the Atlantean oceans all the way to the up and aways of the expanses of the multiverses.
We'll sleep, eat, and full bleed from the local comic shops to the grave for you here on In the Gutters. Please join us for our premiere podcast found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Spotify, and CastBox.
Also, expect X-Men in Claremont.
Lots of X-Men in Claremont.
And we're back.
All right, so you have an article from Alan Moore.
Yeah, just a quick quote, but it's interesting because you were saying, that these certain movies will fulfill a need amongst people,
right?
And I thought it was crazy because I just stumbled across this quote from his, and I was like, I'm going to save this. It's not the job of the artist to give the audience what the audience wants. If the audience knew what they needed, then they wouldn't be the audience; they would be the artists. It is the job of the artists to give the audience what they need. Now, I don't know if that's an actual quote from Alan Moore, because you know the internet.
Right.
But it certainly sounds...
Alan Moore.
Right, and you know Alan Moore. But it certainly sounds like something he would say. But, I think that's very fitting, that it's like, no, we're not here to give people what they want. We're here to fulfill a need.
Right.
And, and just like something with Paranormal Activity, it's not that people were just like, hey, I like found footage now. And it's like, no, that wasn't it. It was that it met some kind of primal thing to say, no, this kind of shit is scary. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to copy that now. It's like, you're not going, there's no situation in cinema when you're going to be the guy who tells the same joke but louder.
Right.
That's just not how that works. And that's why it always fails to do that kind of stuff.
The thing with that is, they don't even look at it and say, oh, what is it? It's like, how much did this cost? How much money can we make off of it? And then they just bombard, and they don't really put any true heart in it. It's like, okay. And what really kind of kills me with some of that stuff is that when they know for a fact that they're putting out a bad product, and they do it anyway because they say, hey, we're at least going to make $2 million off of this.
Right.
Yeah, but is it worth it? Is it worth it to put out a bad product just because you make a little bit of money when you could put a little bit more into this and make $4 million? Yeah, but that's too much work.
Right.
That's too much work. I'm just going to settle for what I have here. But you're doing this to yourself. You're crippling yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, because like you were talking about, giving someone what they need. When you go to the doctor, what you want is to hear that everything's okay.
Yeah, it's like,
and you don't want to hear bad news. But the doctor's job is to give you bad news if bad news exists. I mean, oh, hey, guess what?
It's like you're not going to go to the doctor and hear, oh, you know what? You need to eat more donuts. It'll make you lose 100 pounds, and it'll make your cock bigger. I mean, that's just not how it works.
Right. It's like, no. It's like they're going to tell you, like, oh, by the way, you've got some serious problems with your heart. And it's like, that's not what I wanted to hear. Yeah, well, that's the truth. I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear.
Right, yeah.
If that's the case, then we could have done so over the phone.
Right.
I mean, but the thing is, like, what you need is you want to be healthy, you want to live a longer life, and that means you're going to have to be told the truth and you have to make some changes. If you're not willing to do that, then you can just keep your ass at home and leave me alone.
Yeah.
Or you can just send me a check just out of the blue just to be like, hey, I sent a check to my doctor, for the next 6 months, so I'm going to be healthy. Like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah. And, we've talked about that with, like, so many of the movies that we like. They are movies that, like, challenge you, and they challenge the way you look at the world.
Right.
And, something like Clockwork Orange, that raises a lot of, like, questions about morality and about free will. And, something like Fight Club, I mean, obviously, I mean, that just,
And we talk about Fight Club a lot, and I know people are probably
yeah.
sick of us talking about it, but as you were saying before, is that, you watch it once a year, but every time you watch it, though, you take away something different from it.
Yeah.
And even depending
so.
on where you are in your life, that movie is gonna affect you differently.
Yeah, very much so.
I can watch Captain America: The First Avenger over and over again, and it doesn't matter how many times I see it, I'm still going to come away with it feeling the same way.
Right.
Right. But that movie's not designed for that. And there's other movies too where I can watch. I mean, hell, I can watch Blazing Saddles over and over again. Young Frankenstein. Those are comedies, obviously, but those movies are not going to. They don't challenge me in any way.
Right.
And even if I look at a drama, there's a lot of dramas that I like. Like I love, even I haven't seen it in a while. Love Michael Clayton. Of course, it's got Tilda Swinton in it, but it has George Clooney in it, who I also love.
Oh yeah, George Clooney's the shit.
He's incredible in that movie. But I never walk away from that movie feeling any different about myself. Right. If it's a great movie, but that doesn't challenge me. There are challenge movies, like you say, that that bring something different.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Baby Driver doesn't really challenge me. It hasn't really like made me kind of rethink the way I tackle the world. But I love Baby Driver.
It has changed your driving skills.
It has.
It made you a little bit more aggressive.
I power slide a lot now.
And I wish you wouldn't do so much driving with the headlights off, but. I mean, I understand you're working through something.
I mean, it that only really happens when I'm listening to Hocus Pocus by Focus, but
or Egyptian reggae. So getting back to this thing,
yeah.
So Scorsese, he kind of triggered this reaction, and it became let's say a mild hornet's nest for him. Like everything started buzzing, but they didn't attack anybody. They just buzzed for a while, and then everything just settled back down.
Hey there, Mister.
So anyway, Scorsese says, so you might ask, what's my problem? Why not just let superhero films and other franchise films be? The reason is simple. In many places around this country and around the world, franchise films are now your primary choice if you want to see something on the big screen. And they say he's not wrong. There's franchise films and blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm going to toss a lot of this to Disney because, Marvel is owned by Disney now. And Disney are the people that are doing what we talked about before. Things like, now we're going to take The Lion King. We're going to make a quote-unquote live action from it, which is not live action. It's a different form of anime because nothing in there is live.
Right, yeah.
And then we're going to take...
I think they film the backgrounds on location and then animate the CG animals into it.
So now we're counting trees as live? So I don't remember any of the trees or plants being named in the credits. This is John the Tree and Greg the Bush,
We have decided that you are not orcs.
Yeah. So yeah, that doesn't count as live. At least the Jungle Book had one live human actor in it.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, he was not CGI unless Jon Favreau lied to me. And he's done that before.
He looked at Bill Murray the bear and was like, "Are you an angel?"
And it's like, we were in the bar. He's like, no, don't worry, man. I'll pick up the tab. And then, 2 drinks later, I was like, hey, where's Jon Favreau? He's like, oh, he left. And I was like, you motherfucker.
Oh, good stuff. So I mean, I guess my question here is, what does Martin Scorsese consider cinema? Because, I mean, I just, like, once you started reading his quote, because, his statement is, it's not cinema. But then, Merriam-Webster says, cinema is, it's either a motion picture, it's a motion picture theater, it is the film industry, or it is the art or technique of making motion pictures. So, just by, like, the literal definition here, just the baseline dictionary definition, yeah, no, I mean, Marvel movies meet all of that criteria. So unless he's saying it's not art, which is a completely objective statement, I don't really get what he's trying to push here.
And to say it's not art, I think it is dismissive.
Yeah, oh man, we've talked about that a lot too, because I'm very critical of like DeviantArt and websites like that.
Yeah, you are.
I as critical as I am of that, I'm not going to say that it's not art. It's just not to my taste. Which, to be fair, that is what that's
art
kind of
is.
how he patched that over. Is to say that, it's not to my taste, but at the same time, you really can't say that it's not cinema when by every single definition of the word, it is cinema. It's a movie made with art and techniques from the film industry that you go to a movie theater to see. I mean, that's what it is.
And, for me, for superhero movies, and I noticed there's a guy that runs the D&D campaign that I'm in, and he says, I'm going to see every superhero movie that comes out there, whether it looks good to me or not, because I want to support superhero movies because I like them. I mean, I like that. I like the fact you're doing it. And it's kind of like, if you don't support it, it's going to go away. I'm like, that's true, but I don't want to support movies like Venom. I don't want to support Morbius because Morbius looks like garbage to me. And I love Jared Leto. I wish he could find a nice like superhero franchise. Not that he needs it. He doesn't need it at all.
Right.
But because I'm a superhero fan, I like superhero movies, and he's a great actor and a great musician. I want to mix those worlds together. I mean, I want to bring him in on that. I want to see Jared Leto in something pretty awesome.
Jim and the holograms.
Yeah, well, no, because, since he sings, he can't be a member of the Misfits, and he can't be a member of Jim.
He could just be Jim.
You're thinking of a different Jim.
No.
You're thinking of J.I.M.
holograms.
So...
I want to make that movie. Just Jim from The Office.
So I want that for him, but it does, but we don't need it. I mean, I don't need it. He doesn't need it.
Right, yeah.
And I'm still going to like Jared Leto, for the work that he does. And even if he just continued to do like some like little small roles, like like he did in Fight Club and other things, like Panic Room and stuff.
Yeah.
When he got sorry, I'm just gonna put it out there. If you haven't seen Panic Room yet, me telling you Jared Leto gets killed is not going to ruin the movie because it's not really about him anyway. But when he got killed in Panic Room, I was like, damn, I barely even got any good Jared Leto time,
right?
And he's kind of cool looking with his cornrows.
He is really able to like vary up his physical appearance. But we talked about this with the Joker, and we've talked about the Joker on the podcast a couple times. Not everything needs to be a superhero movie, and I think a lot of times they're just deciding, oh, this is going to be a superhero movie without asking, does it really need to be?
Right.
And I know they've made the statement, oh, the Joker is not a comic book movie, it's not a superhero movie, but it's like, but you're trying to shoehorn it into the DC universe, regardless.
Right, and you called it the Joker. You're making it the Joker.
Yeah,
so
you made the conscientious decision to call it the Joker, to give him that name, to set it in Gotham, to make the Wayne family central characters to it. So yes, it is a comic book movie, whether you want to pretend that it's not.
Right.
So it's like, if you had just made it, the adventures of, like, Creepo the fuckboy who becomes an evil clown, that's fine. Then it would be one of my top 10 favorite films, but it's just you're trying to force it into something that it really doesn't need to be.
While at the same time saying it's not, and
right.
Keep it away. It's like, I want to put it out there, and I want to pull it back.
Right. It's like, yeah, I know you're saying never, but all I'm hearing is now.
Right.
It's like...
So going back to that, yeah, I don't, this guy says, I'm going to support them all because I don't want people. I don't think things to go back to where we're not getting any superhero movies, or when we do, it's such a lackluster thing.
Right.
And as a comic book fan, I've waited a long time to see some real, genuine superhero movies on the screen.
Yeah.
As opposed to what we were getting before, which were things like the Incredible Hulk TV series, Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which is just really bad. And even when I tried to watch that, and it was like, oh, it's got Matt Murdock in it. It's like, yeah, but his Daredevil was not that. And it's like, oh, here's the one with Thor, and it's like, it doesn't even look like Thor. He doesn't act like Thor. You big green ogre, or whatever it was he kept calling him. It's like, that's and then when we did get like some of them on a big screen, or when they tried to make some like the really bad 80s Captain America movie, bad Fantastic Four movie, the good-hearted Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, and then the bad Punisher Warzone movie. I mean,
I don't think superhero movies really got good until like Batman, Like the Tim Burton Batman.
But even then, you had some really bad ones that followed that up.
Oh, yeah. Well, like
horrible.
everything after Batman. Because, like, I didn't like Batman Returns.
Batman Returns is shite.
That was a slog to get through, which sucked because it was like, oh, yeah, you got Danny DeVito as the Penguin. I mean, I love me some Danny DeVito. And it's like, I went into that with such high hopes. I was like, oh, this sucks. Oh, God, and I haven't seen, like Batman and Robin or...
Batman Forever.
Yeah, Batman Forever. I haven't seen those since I was, like, 5. But, like, part of that was because, like, I just don't know if I can do that to myself,
No.
Like, I don't want to see George Clooney's bat nipples and, like, just, like, subject myself to that.
And George Clooney, the guy who's called the man who destroyed the Batman franchise. Honestly, if you were going to make a Batman 5, if Batman 4 was successful, you're going to make a Batman 5, I wouldn't want to see it because, like, 2, 3, and 4 were not good. And it had nothing to do with George Clooney. He was a pretty good Bruce Wayne.
Oh yeah, no, I love Clooney. I think he's a good Batman. It's just like, I mean, the costume design is what killed that.
There were so many things wrong. I could tear those movies apart. Just I could shred them. They're so bad. And I know some people really like it. A lot of people really like Batman Returns. And I'm just like, I don't see it. But then a lot of people like Venom, and I'm like, I'm not picking on Wallcrawler because Wallcrawler is our bro.
Big shout out to Wallcrawler.
And he's a big fan of the channel. He and I, we're working on our podcast, in the gutters, and kind of seeing where that's going to go. Mm-hmm. And he's a fan of that movie, and I'm not. And I'm just like, it kills me. So anyway,
Camelot's a fan of the movie too.
Yeah, but
there's a couple things about the movie I like. It's not like I hated every second of it, but I mean, yeah, it's not a good movie.
I guess you could say there were portions that I liked, but I couldn't like them enough to really enjoy them.
Oh
compared to everything
yeah,
else.
No, like the only other time I intend to watch the movie is so we can do our Let's Watch of it.
Yeah,
that's it. I'll never like go out of my way to go, you know what? I feel like watching Venom today.
And I'm going to say this kind of loosely when I say I feel sorry for Tom Hardy, because I don't really feel sorry for Tom Hardy. He's still doing fine on his own. It's not like
he doesn't need our sympathy,
right? Not at all. But I do feel sorry for him. They put so much work in it and to like invest so much into the character, only to have it turn out the way it did, and him be just as disappointed with it. But anyway. So
I will interrupt you here really quickly because Tom Hardy is like the big draw. Like I said, of the few things that I do like about the movie, and I've seen other people talk about this, so it's not just me like coming up with this. I'm not trying to take credit for that, but I like the fact that Tom Hardy's character that Eddie brought, he just looks like shit the entire movie.
Yeah.
He's a train wreck. He's got like dark circles under his eyes. He's got like this grungy ass, dirty sweatshirt hoodie. He's unshaved, he's unkempt, he's unshowered, he just looks like garbage the entire movie. And you have, it's funny, because, like, last time we were recording, Thor was on, and you just have, like, this entire long extended scene of Chris Hemsworth without a shirt. And it's like, well, yeah, he's, like, this jacked, handsome dude, but it's, like, just this totally gratuitous scene. And I do really appreciate that, they don't do that with Eddie Brock. They don't have this moment of, like, you know what, I'm just going to strut my stuff and show my glorious glistening bod here. It's like, no, he's just going to look like shit, because he's having a bad time. That's the big thing I like about Venom.
Yeah, he put a lot of heart in that movie, and his Eddie Brock, I thought, he does look the whole time like he is just weary. He is just world weary. It's all been too much.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, sorry to have interrupted you there, but
no, that's cool. So what I was gonna say next though is. I've waited a long time to see some really good superhero movies. Now, these movies are not necessary. I can still enjoy what I want as far as comic books go without any of these movies. And if it were up to Alan Moore, he's like, hey, I made this to be a comic book. It needs to be a comic book. It needs to stay a comic book.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. But sometimes I need to be. This is going to come out wrong. I need to be stimulated in a different way, but also I want to see these properties really just kind of like come to life in another medium. And not only that, but as a person that read comic books growing up and still reads comic books, as I can. It's one of those things where having to try to explain to somebody what's great about them, which is also this is the dichotomy of this as well. But having to explain to somebody what makes them great, why I like comic books and that kind of stuff, and then I can't get them to read a comic book, but I can get them to watch the Avengers.
Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, instead the tail end of that is that then these people think they know everything about these characters because they watch this one movie, and it's like that's not what that character's about at all. It's
and we've run into that a lot at the cons where we attend.
Yeah,
where you have people whose only experience with the characters are through the movies.
Yeah, and they start talking out of their ass about it, and I'm like, it's great that you want to have that conversation, but you're not really prepared enough, and you don't have the knowledge.
Don't cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
You're an armless guy in a boxing match. I mean, really, that's what it is. So, I mean, if we were playing soccer, you'd have it up on me because I'd be fouling left and right. But in this case, no, sorry, you're going to lose. But so this is something that I've been wanting, for quite a while. And it's nice to see them when they're really well done. And some of them, like, for example, Batman, Superman, and Suicide Squad, and that kind of stuff, I'll defend. I can't really defend Justice League. I can talk about some of the good merits of it and where it could have gone, but I can't really accurately defend it. I can just talk about where it was supposed to be headed and that kind of stuff. But even then, I can't really definitively do that because I don't know the true story. I'm just getting all the same snippets and rumors that everyone else is.
Right.
But I can with Batman, Superman, and with the Watchmen movie and all that kind of stuff. So so to look at the movies as they are. Let's talk about the what people like to call the kind of the Marvel method. So with that you have, excuse me. With that you have the whole thing, and Roberts brought this up to me, and once he kind of brought it to my attention, I looked at it, and it does bother me some. I understand why it's done that way. It does bother me, but and I wish there was something else that could be done, but unfortunately, it's. I don't think you really can properly do it. And I'm going to tell you what it is in just a minute. I'm holding you all in suspense here, keeping you, I'm holding you hostage while I just expound my great, quote unquote, great wisdom. I don't think there's a better way to really do it. But one of the things he says, like he enjoys them for what they are, but he can't really get invested in them in the same way that you and I can, because most of these movies, almost all of them, is like the hero fights a dark version of themselves. So in Iron Man, he ends up fighting Warmonger, which is just an evil version of Iron Man. Ant-Man fights Yellow Jacket, it's just a dark version of Ant-Man. Hulk fights Abomination. Captain America fights the Red Skull. I think Thor is the only one that's slightly different, but even still, he's fighting Loki kind of in the end, who isn't really a evil version of him because they don't have the same power set. But for the most part, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing them fighting an evil version of themselves. You don't get that with the Christopher Nolan Batman movies in the sense, or I guess you kind of do with the first one because he fights Ra's al Ghul, even though the whole time you don't really know that's who your main villain is, who is kind of like a dark version of himself. But part of that is also if I'm using all this time in the first movie to, and you don't get that in Spider-Man either, but if I'm spending all this time here to establish the origin of the main character, I don't have the necessary time to also establish the origin of the villain. So if I explain to you how the hero works, and then I say, here's a person who is like the hero, only a twisted version of them, then you get that.
Right.
But if I have to create a hero, so if I wanted to put, let's say, the Red Skull against Ant-Man, I've got to explain how the Red Skull came to be, how his powers work and all that. I can't do all that in the same amount of time.
Right, yeah.
So I get that. I don't like it now that I've pointed out. You're probably going to see this so often now. It's like, oh, you're right. This is the same thing. Even with the Black Widow movie that's coming out, right? What are you saying? Black Widow was fighting other people from the Red Room, and then possibly Taskmaster, the person that trained him, who I hope isn't a woman. But what are they? They're evil versions of the Black Widow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you see that. But then if you get that second movie, though, that's when you should see something a little bit different. Whiplash is a little bit different than Iron Man. And then in Iron Man 3, we get a completely different view of Iron Man, which I like. I know it was a little bit different. I'm talking about the Mandarin. I'm talking about the fact that Tony barely wears a suit and all that kind of stuff, right?
I love like the exploration of Tony's character in Iron Man 3.
You get something a little bit different in Thor, Thor the Dark World, and in Thor Ragnarok.
I love Ragnarok.
And even in Ant-Man 2, you get something completely different as well. You get Ghost, who is not like them at all.
Right.
You know, loosely tied in because of the quantum realm and all that, but it's not like them at all.
Right.
I've specifically avoided talking about Captain America because at least Captain America Captain America Winter Soldier and Civil War, because when you get to like Iron Man and you get to Iron Man 2, right? You're seeing something. With Iron Man 2, with Iron Man you see this development of a character, which is here's a guy that makes weapons, right? And he's really good at making weapons. That's what he likes to do. Well, yeah, like he likes to make money. He likes to make money, and making weapons makes him money. Then he finds out that the weapons that he's making are being used against innocent people. He doesn't really technically give a shit about that.
Right.
What he ends up giving a shit about is that those weapons that were being used to hurt innocent people are also being used against him.
Right.
And that's when he realizes, oh, hey, in a sense, I am almost an innocent person like them, but also, how dare this thing come back? I made you. You're not supposed to hurt me. I should be immune to all this. I made the weapons. I should not be, I should be just, off the table as far as being able to be hurt by them. And he's not.
Right.
And then he kind of puts himself in that, like, oh, these weapons that I created, are capable of hurting me too. And look at all the suffering I've caused in the world.
Right.
It is kind of I will say that it is kind of a rushed like character flip for him to be like, oh, after being in prison for like a month, now I'm so easy to so quick to change my ways, and now I want to save people instead of hurting them. Yeah, it does happen kind of quickly, and yes, I know he's got his relationship with Jensen and all that, but there already had to have been something inside of him that wanted to turn or recognize that, and this was just the kind of thing that pushed him over the edge. And I'm going to mention here which is kind of a slight deviation, but it's to kind of help make my point, which is if you watch the Avatar: The Last Airbender cartoon,
right?
In season 2, they go to Ba Sing Se. And you've already seen the whole evolution of, well, you haven't seen the evolution of Uncle, but you learn more about Uncle. You learn that Uncle, the guy that's trying to teach, what's his nephew's name?
Zuko?
Yeah, thank you, Zuko. He's trying to teach Zuko, like, not to follow in this, to stop trying to hunt the Avatar and all that stuff. And it keeps being brought back up to him. You're the guy that laid siege to Ba Sing Se for like 10 years.
Right.
And then you stopped. And what made him stop was when his son was killed. And then he went and took a look back and was like, wait a minute. This whole war is bullshit. We never should have been fighting this war at all. And he's like, and the only way I can stop it really is to get Zuko and show him that this war doesn't need to be fought and that your father is a bad guy.
Right.
And you have this one scene, because it's something that he works with Zuko on throughout the entire first season, just trying to talk him through it. You've got the one episode in season 1 where it's Uncle and Iroh and Katara, and she doesn't know who he is, but he knows who she is, and he makes no attempts to escape, to capture her or whatever. And he just talks to her, and so you really get an idea of his character and kind of what he's about and where he's coming from. And he works on Zuko. And then in season 2, you've got that moment where Zuko has that fever dream where he's struggling with doing what his father wants him to do and being the good person that Uncle's trying to teach him to be.
Right.
And he struggles with that. And then he wins in the end. He comes out and he's a good person.
Right, yeah.
But he's not. He switches back very soon afterwards back to being the Zuko that's following his father's orders. It's not until he, I think it's either later in season 2 or in season 3, where his sister comes into play and he really realizes that, oh, no, this is all wrong. One, she's knuckin' futz. Mm-hmm. She is so crazy. And this is what power does to people. And this is what Uncle's been telling me about.
Right.
But it takes him a while to make that change. And we do see that change happen way too quickly in Tony Stark without already having something in him that says, you shouldn't be this person. Now, we do have Pepper, mm-hmm. and we do see she has a little bit of influence on him, but we don't really see where he's really taking her to heart. I would say enough to really fully accept that his change in the cave, right? But anyway, so you've got that arc. He's a guy that makes weapons, is happy making weapons, spending money, not being accountable for anything, not taking anything seriously, betting any chick that I can, and just whatever I want to do, I do.
Right.
Then he goes to the cave, he comes out, and even then he's like, hey, I survived. And he's like, oh, hey, you know what? I want to make a better version of this suit. This was a new idea I had. This is kind of awesome. And he doesn't really say it, for maybe something for weapons, but he does say, hey, let's keep this off the main servers.
Right.
Maybe I might want to do something with this. I don't know what. It's not until he sees that, oh, wait a minute. I made it out, but these people are still using my weapons to hurt innocents.
Right.
And yes, I'm making money off of it, but I could convince myself that these weapons were only being used to hurt the bad people. But now the bad people have them, and you're using them to hurt innocents, mm-hmm. and that's kind of my fault because I made it. Now, granted, you made it, and it's being used for all the wrong purposes. I mean, I could kill somebody with a sheet of paper, right? And you'd be like, oh, wait a minute, they never should have sold that paper. Well, no, I used that in the wrong way.
Right.
But in this case, you're making a weapon. A weapon is only really designed to do one thing.
Right, yeah.
Which is kill. So, yeah, I mean, they're using it in the way it was designed to be used. They're just not using it, for the purposes you want them to. Mm-hmm. And that's what you're upset about. And so, so he kind of does this whole thing and he becomes Iron Man. Okay, great. Then the second one, he's still Iron Man. He's still just playing Iron Man. He doesn't really have a purpose. He doesn't have, he's just, I'm playing Iron Man and I'm privatizing world peace, but I'm still Tony Stark at the end of the day. I'm still doing all the shit that I did before and all that. You move into Thor, right? And Thor's whole thing is all about, being responsible. All Thor wants to be is king. He wants to rule. And, Odin says, you don't even know what it means to rule. Right. Only thing you think that ruling is just means that now I can go to war whenever I want to. I can start fights, and this is what I like to do.
Yeah.
And then he teaches him some humility, and then from that he realizes that I don't want to be king.
Yeah.
Because being a king comes with more responsibility than I'm really ready for. Mm-hmm. I don't want that. I do like to fight, but now I also know that I can channel my fighting spirit and my drive into fighting a good fight, fighting a better fight.
Right.
Right. And that's really kind of his whole interest in Midgard is that, Asgard and the 9 realms, I'm keeping them safe as far as that goes, but here's a place here that now is going to warrant a lot more attention, and by protecting Midgard, mm-hmm. Not only can I get some really nice Natalie Portman and some Kat Denning, maybe.
Destroy her.
Yeah. Oh man, Kat Denning. But
God, she is legendary.
But not only that, and I really am building something. I really am. But knowing that now this world has been opened up to more, mm-hmm. I can do what I like to do, which is fight. But I can fight for a good cause.
Yeah.
And so there's that. And you kind of see these things here. And there's that kind of theme that's moving along. But the reason I've saved Captain America for last is that you have your first movie, Captain America, which is not a superhero movie. It's not. You can call it a superhero movie if you want, but it really is a war movie.
It's a war movie.
It's a straight up war movie, and that's what it is. It just happens to be a war movie about a guy who happens to have these extraordinary abilities. But you could take that with any kind of war movie where you had like the soldier that wouldn't quit, that continued to go on. What's that movie they came out with? Angelina Jolie directed. Crap, I can't think of the one. This is a true story about the guy that was like, he was like an Olympic athlete, and then he went to the war, and he was a POW, and then
Unbreakable?
Yeah, no, not Breakable. That's the unless it was the same title as the Shyamalan book.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I'm pretty sure it was the same title. Right. Either that or his is Unbroken.
It might be Unbroken. But anyway, whatever. You guys look it up.
The POW guy. I mean, that's a good movie.
Right. So here's a guy. He's an ordinary guy. He's not a superhero, but you take his story and you match it up with Captain America, and you're still talking about a soldier that is doing what he can with the abilities that he has, whether they're enhanced abilities or normal, but an indomitable spirit that just won't stop. They're pretty much the same thing. Just in this case, we gave him a more dramatic theatrical villain,
right?
And we beefed him up some, but pretty much we're still talking about it's a war movie.
Yeah,
we just changed some elements, made it a little bit more fantastical. We move into Winter Soldier, and now we've got a suspense thriller. We've got an espionage thriller.
Yeah.
With some superhero type elements in it, but again, he doesn't call Iron Man. He doesn't call like Thor. Well, Thor's off world, but he doesn't ask for help from any of these people. It stays in house, with people that are just like him. Falcon, who's the guy that's got like a special suit or whatever. Which again, it's really just a special suit. It's nothing more than any kind of experimental like thing that might be out there that the government is not using. Yeah, it's a little further along technology wise, but still.
Right.
And you've got the super spy, who is just a super spy. That's all she is, and an athlete. And it's an espionage thriller along the same lines as what's the name of that movie? I'm trying to think of the original one. I mean, they're all the same thing, but in my mind, I'm referring to the original one with Angela Lansbury and Frank Sinatra. Oh shit! I can't. I hate when I blank on a movie, especially when I'm on a podcast like this. And I know you all know what I'm talking about too, because they remade it later with Denzel Washington and Liev Schreiber. Manchurian Candidate.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I mean, you're looking at this is kind of the equivalent of like the Manchurian Candidate, or any of those other spy movies, those espionage thrillers. That's what Winter Soldier is. It's an espionage thriller.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, guess what? There's corruption deep in the heart of the government. That's what every espionage thriller is. We need you to find this out, Jack Ryan.
Right.
Where this come from, and that's what it is. It's superhero because it's Captain America. But the first one's a war movie. The second one is an espionage thriller. And then the third one is where we're looking at, and it's got a little bit more superhero elements in it, but the third one is just what it says. It's a civil war. It's like we're going to war for something, and then we find out we're going to war for the all wrong reasons.
Right.
I mean, and you can attribute that to anything from, any other kind of like war movie. It really is kind of a different war movie, only it's war on the home front.
Right, yeah.
And it's wrapped in with all these other superhero movies, but these are not superhero movies.
Right.
And to take them and to say, I looked at all these things and all of these kind of movies are kind of pandering to these crowds. These movies are not pandering to those crowds. The other ones are hitting certain tones because those characters, have to play within that world. And when you look at Iron Man 3, where, Iron Man doesn't really play within that world, a lot of people kind of dismiss it. Like it's not really a good movie because it doesn't play within what they're expecting it to be.
Right.
And you can't really change the landscape that much. But we do see more of a changing landscape in the Marvel movies as we've expanded what to expect from these movies.
Right.
And we're changing the audience's expectations as well.
Right. And that's, you've mentioned like character development several times, and that a big criticism is like that the character development isn't going the way they're expecting. But, that's the thing. It's like, you're not going to have character development within the span of a single movie in this situation because that's not how they're planning it. Within if it's a standalone hour and a half movie, yes, you're going to want to see like pretty significant character development within that hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But in a Marvel movie, it's like, this is the long game.
Right.
You're going to see significant character development over the course of 10 years, but you're not going to see a very significant amount of character development within the span of a single 2-hour movie.
And I think because that's one of the big failings of a movie like Justice League is that you're not allowing it to develop the way it's not developing organically.
Yeah.
You know?
They really tried to force way too much out of Justice League in way too little time.
Right. And
I think they knew that. It was just a cash grab.
Right.
I think they had to know, you know what? It took them 10 years to do this. Let's do it in 2 movies, guys.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a cash grab. It's like, and I think you need to separate superhero movies, genuine movies, where I'm trying to make a movie that happens to involve superheroes, from a cash grab.
Yeah.
And I don't like the fact that they're targeting superhero movies, but then you're not targeting something like Fast and Furious movies,
Right.
Which are just as fantastical, as any Marvel movie here. We got cars jumping, jumping from one building to the next and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like,
if not more so. I think it's fair to say that might be even more fantastical, because you can have that suspension of disbelief where it's like, yes, some cosmic accident occurred to make these people exceptional.
Right.
Whereas in the Fast and the Furious, it's like, nope, they're just that awesome driving cars. I don't know.
And
fell into a well and eyes go crossed. Mule kicks her in the head. They go uncrossed. I don't know what to tell you, Clark.
Right. Yeah. I'm like, what? How's that work? And then, but I also didn't see that same kind of like dismissiveness being applied to like Star Wars. Mm-hmm. And if we look at I'm just going to focus on the Marvel franchise here. If we look at the Marvel franchise and the movies there, we look at them and they have overall positive reviews from fans and critics. Say these are good movies.
Yeah,
they're fairly solid. Yeah, this one may not be this may not be that or whatever, but they're good. You can't say that among the Star Wars franchise from like the past like 10 or let's say 9 movies that have been made, right?
Yeah.
From the prequels through like Rogue One to Solo to like these other like 3.
Yeah, to the new trilogy, to the sequel trilogy, I think is the official name for it.
I guess that's what, 8 movies. But I mean, I like Rogue One, and I appreciate the prequels. I will say that they're not great movies, but I appreciate them for a completely different reason than most people would say they do.
An angel?
Yeah, there's always that. And then Solo is garbage, and I just can't. I have no interest in watching Rise of Skywalker because I hated the other 2 movies.
Might be a racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I still haven't seen Rise of Skywalker, and like I've heard a lot of people say it's really good, but then I've also seen some spoilers just like through memes, because that's what happens when you fly too close to the sun on the internet, and it's like just based off of those spoilers, it's like this sounds like it's gonna suck.
Yeah, I mean the any kind of knowledge you want to learn on the internet is really kind of an Icarus story.
Yeah,
like it's like I don't want to get too close to it because I know what's going to happen. But
see also Shy Boys.
But you're not calling them the cash grabs that they are, because that's really what they are. They are straight up cash grabs.
Oh yeah, there was like no other reason for the Solo movie.
Right, and it's so awful.
Yeah, and you can tell that was nothing but a cash grab, because what story did they go into? The Kessel Run.
Right.
Of course.
And that whole thing makes no sense. And I'm not going to start tearing into that.
Yeah, because we're over time anyway.
You hire 2 guys who are known for making comedies and be like, wait a minute, you guys are going to make a comedy? Well, yeah, that's what we do. And I mean, granted, you have some chance sometimes where like a person that's known for one thing does something different. And prime example of that is Silence of the Lambs, right? It's like, we don't really kind of want to hire this guy because we're trying to make, this dramatic, thriller here, and that's not what he's known for. But he comes on board saying, oh, I want to make a dramatic thriller.
Right.
Bam. There's a big difference there, as opposed to like, oh yeah, here we go, we're going to write this movie, we're going to do this thing, and they're like, well, we didn't know that's what you're making. Well, you should have asked then.
Yeah.
Did you guys not approve the script? But anyway, So you're pinning a lot on these movies, but you're not looking at it objectively to be able to say, where's the heart in these movies? Where's the story? You're just looking at them and say, oh, okay, well, they're tagged with a superhero, tagline or headline, and then I'm just going to lump them all together. And you can't lump them all together. You have to treat them just like everything else. You have to take them just like Westerns back in the day. Not every Western is good, and I hated Westerns for the longest time. I was like, I don't want to watch a fucking Western. Because my mind of Westerns with these guys in like, the chaps and the sequin shirts and everything is like, let's go kill some Indians. Let's go rope some... Like, they were boring. I'm like, that's not me. But one of the first movies I saw in the Western was The Long Riders. Walter Hill movie. Love The Long Riders. Now it's like the only thing is like, oh yeah, I don't like Westerns except for The Long Riders.
Right.
Then I watched Young Guns 2 and Young Guns. Okay. I don't like except for these three. Then I watched Tombstone. Tombstone's the shit. Love me some Tombstone, right? and then I watched Appaloosa, 310 to Yuma, and I'm like, wait a minute. My idea of what a Western is not what a Western is. Western is a genre.
Yeah.
Western is not these old John Wayne movies and everything. Like Western is a genre. It's a movie that takes place in the West that has people that carry guns and go to these old dusty ass towns, but you can tell any story you want within that.
Case in point being all those adaptations of the Kurosawa movies remade as Westerns.
Right.
It's like those are samurai stories. Those aren't cowboy stories. They're samurai tales, but they're done in the Western genre.
Right. And so, I think that when the reason that Westerns I stopped being a thing was because one, as the world changed, you had more things to relate to, and then the whole Western thing was like it was so far removed. It's like I don't know that world anymore, and the stories you're trying to tell within that world don't make sense to me.
Right.
Yeah. But now you do see a slight resurgence in Western where you can make a Western now and it brings people in. Obviously not like The Lone Ranger, but other movies you can make a Western and it brings people in because you're telling a story that just happens to take place in the Old West. You're not telling a quote unquote Western.
Right, yeah.
And I think it's the same way with these movies. Like I'm telling a story that happens to involve superheroes. I'm not telling a technically superhero story in the way that you are used to seeing it or the way it's imagined in your head.
Right.
And I would think that someone like Martin Scorsese could recognize that, and being in the industry could recognize the industry and separate those from what they are. And I guess the fact that he isn't doing it or didn't do it or doesn't want to do it, that's kind of what hurts me the most about that comment.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop me from watching The Irishman. It's not going to stop me from watching any of his other movies or loving them or recommending them in any way, but it's like, knowing what I know about you, which is not to say I know him at all, right? But knowing what I know about you, I would expect more thought into that and looking at it as a whole, and then looking at all these things you classify as superhero movies and saying, I can separate this piece of shit from this movie, and I can also see how this movie is not the same as these others. And I'm not really, and to say they're pandering for something or whatever, because people keep predicting the superhero crash. Like eventually it's going to be superhero fatigue. Not really. Because as long as you're making a good movie, there's not going to be a fatigue. Yes, some people will fall away, but those people were not the intended audience to begin with.
Right.
Those are the same people that we're having these debates and cons with that are saying like, oh, well, this is what this character is about. No, it's not. You know shit about that character.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to come into your house and tell you that I know what fucking Twilight's about because one, I don't, and two, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
But
it's kind of like the whole thing. We've had so many debates with so many people on whether or not Jared Leto's a good Joker, and it's like inevitably these people who are arguing with us are not comic book readers. They're people who are saying, "Oh, it's Heath Ledger." I've never even heard people like compare him negatively to Mark Hamill's take on the Joker. It's always the Heath Ledger Joker.
Right.
It's like, why? Because that's your only other exposure to the Joker is Heath Ledger's take, which Heath Ledger did a very good take. But he's not Joker Prime. He's just a very anarchistic interpretation of Mark Hamill's Joker.
And he's a Joker that exists in that Christopher Nolan world where nothing else exists except for Batman.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference there too. As where in Suicide Squad, it's different. And every once in a while, somebody want to pull a Cesar Romero out their ass, and I'm like, really? You really don't have a leg to stand on here with Cesar Romero, right?
It's like I could understand pulling Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson is a very tough act to follow, but Cesar Romero, come on.
I mean, I can't even take a Joker seriously who won't shave his mustache and puts makeup over his mustache, which is clear. And then it's like, so you're not like you're you really are just a buffoon. You're a quote unquote clown.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the only thing that makes you different from a regular clown is that you're actually entertaining, as where they're just whacked out pieces of shit.
They're just creepy with a fuck boy.
I hate a clown. But you can't compare him in any way to anybody else, and you never see them compare Cesar Romero to Jack Nicholson, to Mark Hamill, or to Heath Ledger. They only want to compare it, to Jared Leto to kind of make a point. Like, look, he's not even a real Joker.
Right.
See, your mama's a real Joker.
I mean, like, the example I always use is that, Jared Leto is the Joker from the Dark Knight Returns graphic novel, just with tattoos. If you remove his tattoos, he looks identical to the way he does in Dark Knight Returns.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, that's the version that he's doing. And, like, it's that level of insanity. Because, in Dark Knight Returns, you have him, like, just randomly killing people at the carnival. It's like, that's the kind of Joker that they're doing. Of course he's not going to be Mark Hamill's Joker. Nobody can be Mark Hamill's Joker. And, of course, he's not going to be Heath Ledger's Joker, because that was done for a very specific age and a very specific interpretation of anarchy.
And I'm going to say this, and then let's take another break. Oh, I guess we'll wrap up part one.
I think we can.
And then we'll do a nice little conclusion to part two. But I'm going to say this. For all those people out there that keep saying that, take your Heath Ledger Joker and you put him in Suicide Squad and see if he doesn't stand out like a fucking sore thumb.
Yeah, he would not work in that role at all.
I mean, he stands out like Mr. McCrae.
Especially
who has a leg for an arm and an arm for a leg.
Right. Especially the way that he would interact with Harley. Like, Heath Ledger's Joker is not a Joker designed to work with Harley. With any kind of Harley Quinn. There is no Harley Quinn that Heath Ledger's Joker could interact with in any capacity. Because that's not that aspect of Joker's personality that he's trying to represent.
Right.
And I love Heath Ledger's Joker, but he is not the penultimate Joker Prime. He's just not.
So, as we're wrapping this up here, I went and I pulled a book off my shelf here, and I just want to show it to you, because I don't think you've ever seen this. And maybe I did show it to you once, but I'm going to show you this.
Okay.
And just to kind of wrap this up before we move on to part two. So this is... I know this is a really divisive book to bring up. People are like, what the fuck? You're going to use that to make your point with? But no, I'm not making my point with this book. I'm making my point with this image. Okay. So I'm looking at the All-Star Batman and Robin by Frank Miller and Jim Lee. Mm-hmm. All right, and quiet down. All right.
I like both of those names. So,
and I'd have to do a whole separate podcast about this book itself and what it is and its good points and its bad points and all that stuff. But what I'm pointing out to is issue 8. Look at this picture of the Joker there.
Oh, the one on the right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got tattoos.
He's got that big-ass red dragon tattoo on his back.
He's got that Ben Affleck back, too.
I mean, that's a pretty badass, scary picture of the Joker.
That's a great picture. I love that.
Right. So when you look at Jared Leto's Joker, it reminded me of this one here, which is a pretty terrifying Joker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's phenomenal.
And so it's, you look at that and it's like, you're talking about a Joker for a different world. And I always saw his Joker as, saw Jared Leto's Joker as kind of more modeled after All-Star Batman and Robin, which some people say, well, that's your problem right there. But no, not to say that he followed his mannerisms, but just his look. His look was modeled after that, which in a sense is a pretty terrifying look.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, just and we've talked about it on so many episodes now, but it's just like that, just they're all different takes. They're all showing different elements of the Joker's personality. And yeah, I'll debate Jared Leto being a good Joker till the end of time. He is objectively a good Joker, and all the only argument I've ever heard people make is that he's got tattoos, he looks stupid. And it's like, well, that's a bad argument.
Yeah, he's like, I don't want some gang member Joker. He just looks like, I'm like, that's not, if that's what your takeaway was from, then you weren't watching the movie.
Right. It's like, until you can adequately compare, like, Mark Hamill and Heath Ledger and show how Heath Ledger is inferior to Mark Hamill, then don't try to come at me with, tattoos make him bad. That's stupid.
And the thing is, I don't compare my Jokers to one another because each one is fitting a different thing, and they're fitting a different part of what they're in as far as the medium, the story that it's telling, all that stuff. Each one is is designed to fit and play within that world. You
Yeah.
can't compare them and you can't swap them.
Yeah, they meet a different need at a different time.
I'm gonna tell you, you put Jack Nicholson's Joker in Batman 66, Batman and Robin are fucking dead.
Oh, that would be awesome. Oh my god, I would love that so much. Just imagine Jack Nicholson's Joker in Suicide Squad.
That would be interesting, but you would not have a Harley Quinn.
No, you wouldn't. No, I mean, like, you have to display certain vulnerabilities within the Joker, and certain more psychopathic abusive tendencies in the Joker that a lot of those takes on him can't display in order for him to adequately interact with Harley Quinn.
Yep.
So, like, it has to display both his abusive nature and some of the vulnerabilities within his nature. And, like, yeah, there's absolutely no way that, like, Nicholson or Ledger could have done that at all.
So we'll go ahead and we'll stop here, and we'll pick back up and kind of bring this thing to a conclusion. Because I mentioned Jodie Foster, so I don't want to just toss her name out there and then not talk about her.
Right. Okay, so part 2 we will focus on Jodie Foster.
In some fashion.
Does she have a candle?
I don't think so. I don't feel the same way about Jodie Foster that I feel about Gwyneth Paltrow. Even though I will say Jodie Foster is so adorably cute in Maverick with Bruce not Bruce Willis, with Mel Gibson, and James Garner. And she is just she makes me smile. Her character in Maverick is so well done, and she's so adorable.
Anyway, yeah, so hey, thanks for giving us a listen, people. I know that, like, you probably don't agree with everything we said, but...
I doubt these people agree with much of what we say. They just listen to me like, oh my god, these guys are crazy.
What are they going to say to piss me off today? But yeah, no, I think you did drive home a pretty good point that, this isn't like us saying that we, like, don't respect Scorsese. It's just saying that, we really don't think he's looking at superhero movies in the right way. And that he's trying to use, like, catch-all terminology for something that, like, is really just, like, grossly inaccurate to what Marvel has been doing with their films.
And I think if you want to apply that kind of statement to them, I would have liked for him to say, some movies or the ones I've seen here.
Yeah.
But him say I can't watch him. I've tried to watch him and they're all just bad. They're not this. I'm like, because I know Martin Scorsese sees some bad movies. I'm pretty sure that he's got some guilty pleasure movies on his shelf. That he's just like, yeah, this isn't great, but I do love it, and I probably feel bad about as a director, I probably should feel bad about liking it so much, but right. I do.
And if you don't have that, then I don't think you're appreciating movies for what they can be. Like, you don't have to have a stick up your ass about movies. Every once in a while, you just need to look at, like, a schlocky Nick Cage film and just enjoy it for what it is. They don't have to all be like these, quiet, let me adjust my monocle, pieces of art. You don't need that all the time, so... But yeah, no. We'll be back and we will discuss a little bit more in part 2.
Thanks, all.
Later.
To be continued.
Did you hear what happened?
All right there, folks. That was Our Moms Think We're Funny. Let's give them a hand.